Death in the Distance by Jarvis B. Chavez. I entered the dark study. At the other end of the room, I saw a lone candle flicker. It was at the head of a long table. As I drew closer, I started to make out faces and figures of the men sitting at the table in the dark. When I got to the edge of the table, I could make out the face behind the candle. It was the head of our order, Al-Masudi.
Omar, we have called upon you to do an important task that must be done. For hundreds of years, this secret society made up of our several families have been the guardians of many secrets and treasures. That's why we have triumphed where others have failed. We alone have controlled the rise and falls of kings and caliphs. We have endured and become wealthy beyond our dreams. Now, one man comes to threaten all of these. This Englishman. He has something that belongs to us, to all of us. He possesses a page from the most sacred of texts. It contains a great power that alone is ours. You must get it back and punish this infidel. This man has escaped death by our hands once already. Al-Bin-Sur had been tasked with poisoning him, but the Englishman survived. As you know, failure means death. Al-Bin-Sur paid for his failure, and his family will be punished as a result. You have been chosen among the worthy to prove your love and loyalty to the rest of us by eliminating this man. Take this bag. In it, you will find all you will need. The arrangements have been made. You leave tonight.
I picked the bag up and quickly left the room in silence. My family and the family of Al-Masudi had been at each other's throats for ages. My great-grandfather had been the head of our order until he was betrayed and removed from power by the Al-Masudi family. This task must be more dangerous than it appears. He wants me to fail in order to get rid of me and my family, once and for all. He fears that one day, my family and I will seek revenge for what they have done. He is correct in this assumption. I will not fail. This I vow.
Mother and I boarded the train at Istanbul, and I headed to Paris and then on to England. I took a sip of my tea as I sat in the luxury of the dining car. Mother and I came here to visit my sister Victoria after the death of our father a year ago in 1932. My sister's husband Thomas was posted to Istanbul with the diplomatic service. We are finally returning home after nearly 6 months. We had our family solicitor settle the estate. He assisted in the conveyancing of a small cottage in the countryside where we will make our new home. I replied to Mademoiselle Dubois, I say, you must find being a schoolteacher immensely rewarding, helping to shape and develop young minds and all. Oh, oui, absolument, absolument. It has afforded me many opportunities to travel and to meet different types of people from many cultures. Mademoiselle Dubois was a very thin and plain-looking woman. She wore gold-wired spectacles at the end of her long, thin nose. I am returning to an academy for young women where I instruct during the academic year. I have spent several months teaching the children of Arab royalty, both French and English. How lovely! I say, this part of the world has always fascinated me so. I heard a loud and abrupt series of coughs. Professor Bennett, are you all right? I turned to stare at the pale, elderly gentleman sitting across from me. The professor replied while wiping his face down with his handkerchief.
I am fine, my dear lady. Still recovering, I'm afraid.
I say, what a horrible experience coming down with food poisoning and having to spend all that time in hospital. Simply ghastly, I added.
The unfortunate side of travelling abroad, Miss Walker.
The professor lamented. Oh, please call me Penelope, I urged. Being an archaeologist must be fascinating work, Professor.
I will admit, it has its moments.
The professor nodded his head. So, you are a professor at Oxford, yes?
Yes, but I'm currently on sabbatical. I was part of an archaeological expedition in the region, known as the Empty Quarter. We were looking for the lost city of Iram, known to some as the Atlantis of the Sands.
The professor replied while cleaning his glasses. So, Professor, were your efforts rewarded? Did you make any amazing discoveries?
One or two, perhaps, my good lady.
Before I could ask what they were, the professor excused himself, saying he felt like lying down before dinner. Very well. Feel better, Professor, I said, most sincerely.
Hello, Jeanette.
A man approached our seats. He was a tall, distinguished younger man. He was dark-complected with smouldering dark eyes. Mademoiselle Dubois jumped up with all the glee of a young schoolgirl. Omar, how are you? I did not see you at breakfast this morning. Miss Walker, may I present Omar Al-Hazred?
It's Omar, I insist. And I assure you, the pleasure is all mine, Miss Walker.
It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Mr. Al-Hazred. Omar is on his way to Paris to manage his family's various business holdings. He is such a brilliant businessman for his age.
Jeanette, please do not exaggerate my abilities to Miss Walker.
Jeanette looked at him adoringly. Do not believe a word of it. He is far too modest for his own good. I have heard a lot about you from Jeanette.
I hope only good things.
Mostly, I said with a small laugh. If you will excuse me, I must check on Mother and see that she takes her medication before dinner.
Perhaps we can all get better acquainted some other time.
I look forward to it. Good day. It seemed an odd pairing to me. Jeanette was what some may call a spinster. She was a delightful younger woman, well-spoken and good company, but hardly a great beauty. Omar, on the other hand, was a handsome young gentleman in his prime. He appeared both educated and well off financially. Yet he seemed very attentive and interested in Jeanette. Perhaps beauty is indeed in the eye of the beholder.
After dining with Jeanette, we spent hours talking about various topics important to her. I wish I could say I enjoyed her company, but I was preoccupied with the task at hand. I convinced her to partake of a small sherry before turning in for the night. I managed to put a few drops of a harmless substance that would render her unconscious but not kill her. We said our goodnights at the table. I waited for her to first leave before getting up and following her to her compartment at a distance. As I caught up to her, she was already beginning to stumble and appeared dizzy. I managed to grab hold of her before she fainted. I dropped her body onto the floor of my sleeping compartment. She was still unconscious from the drug I had given her. I opened my valise and pulled out a scroll, a gold ring, and the dagger. I unrolled the scroll and began to read out the words of sacrifice. As soon as I finished reading, I immediately placed the ring on my finger. The ring had been in my family for many years. When I was told of this mission, I retrieved it from my father's possession and brought it with me. I regret what I must do to you, Jeanette, but I choose you because you are a pure soul, a virgin. You are what is needed for this ritual. I then grabbed the dagger and plunged it into Jeanette's chest. The lights in my compartment flickered briefly and went out. I was shrouded in darkness. As I turned towards the door, I saw two lights appear in the corner of the room. They first appeared yellow, then turned into a bright orange. Then a ball of smokeless fire appeared before me and transformed into a figure of a man. It was the Jinn.
Who has called me forth?
I have. The Jinn stared down at me and spoke.
Al-Hazred.
The Jinn knew my name. He started to move quickly towards me. I raised the ring. Stop, demon! The Jinn froze in place. He appeared to be struggling, trying with all his might to advance towards me. He even put his arms in front of him in a vain attempt at grasping me.
So, You possess the Ring of Solomon, Al-Hazred.
The Jinn let out a laugh.
You are fortunate for now. Why have you summoned me here?
I desire the death of Professor Harold Bennett. I wish for the retrieval of the page in his possession and the erasure of all knowledge of the page from the memory of all of the Professor's colleagues.
The page you seek, Al-Hazred, holds a great power and was never meant for the world of the living. Yet your families lay claim to all of the secrets of Iran. Mortal man was made hollow until the day he dies. He will never quench his thirst to consume all in order to fill the vast emptiness within him. Man's insatiable nature shall always be his undoing.
The Jinn smiled. He clapped his hands together and said,
It shall be done, now! Let it be known that by summoning me and demanding the fulfillment of your desires, you and you alone, Al-Hazred, will have to pay the ultimate price. You have forfeited your very life and soul to me. Perhaps I should tear you limb from limb in front of all, so you and the others should learn from your errors. Alas, mankind never learns and continues to repeat its mistakes. Prepare yourself, Al-Hazred, for I shall return for you.
The whole compartment started to shake violently. I fell to the floor. I looked up at the Jinn and saw him turn from an orange flame into a deep red light. It was blinding. I shielded my eyes with my hands. The Jinn started to speak in some unknown tongue. I covered my ears. His voice grew louder and louder. Then, the compartment suddenly stopped shaking. The lights flickered on, and the Jinn had vanished. Al-Masudi, you have deceived me, and have tried to seal my fate. That is why he chose me to do this. He knew that by invoking this creature, I would suffer a fate worse than death. Damnable viper has tried to curse me and my family for eternity!
I was enjoying a small aperitif before Mother and I had our dinner when I heard a strange groaning coming from the next table. It was Professor Bennett. He was frozen in place, staring up at something in the corner of the room. His face was devoid of color. He was as white as a sheet. I followed his gaze to the corner of the dining car, but saw nothing.
No! Can't you see it? It's hideous!
The professor let out a scream and ran from his table and out of the dining car. I stood up and ran after him. Professor Bennett, are you all right? One of the conductors came up to me and said,
Is he ill?
I don't know. Please, you must help me attend to the professor. We ran after him. He would occasionally stop, turn around in our direction, and continue to scream in terror.
No! Stay away from me, you devil!
He reached his compartment and swung the door open. He ran inside. As the conductor and I got to the door, the compartment was empty. I saw the window open and let out a scream. I saw the conductor pull the emergency cord and he yelled out,
Stop the train!
The following afternoon when we reached Paris, I asked one of the train staff if they had found the professor. He informed me that they had stopped the train for several hours and looked for him along the train tracks. They did not find him. It is assumed he is still alive. The local authorities are trying to locate his family in England and inform them of what has happened.
Good morning, Miss Walker. By any chance, have you seen Jeanette?
I received a cable from Jeanette just this morning, in fact. It read, Dearest Penelope, I received an urgent message at the train's last stop. I have to leave due to an illness in my family. My mother has taken ill, and my place is at her bedside. I have made alternate travel arrangements and will not be continuing on to Paris. It was a pleasure to make your acquaintance. She is such a good daughter and a fine young woman. I wish her mother a speedy recovery.
I also wish Jeanette well, and hope she resolves her family troubles quickly. Miss Walker, I was delighted to meet you and hope someday our path may yet cross again. I had made arrangements to have the telegram waiting for her when she awoke this morning. I had heard about what had happened to the good professor. The Jinn had taken him. I found the page already packed away in my valise. The Jinn had kept his word, and he would expect payment. Both al-Masudi and the Jinn had not taken into account that I had the ring. That's why the Jinn had not taken me in the night like the professor. Al-Masudi had hoped that I would have been killed by the Jinn for summoning him. That way he could tell our order that I had failed and would eliminate my family once and for all. Now, I had a ring and a page in my possession. I dispatched a telegram to al-Masudi telling him I live and possess both the page and the ring. I told him my family is not to be harmed, or else I will use the secrets of the page against him and bring the Jinn to his very doorsteps and offer him as the Jinn's next sacrifice. I also informed him that upon my return, there would be many changes, and to hold himself in a state of readiness on what is to come.